Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Winadinda Pratiwi, and I will explain about Pidgin languages. Okay, I will explain about Pidgin languages, and then here is my PPT on my presentation. I put the picture here, I put the PPT here, and then I will introduce about the definition about Pidgin languages. Okay, a pidgin language is a form of language that appears as a means of communication between two or more groups that have different mother tongues. Pidgin often develop in context of trade colonialism or a situation where people with different languages need to communicate effectively. Pidgin language tend to have simple structure, limited vocabularies, and are often a mixture of elements from interacting languages. The variety of Pidgin language grows because there are two parties who want to communicate with each other but speak different languages. They use a third language as an immediately languages. But they combine their two language, then the Pidgin language has no native speakers, but it used as a lingua franca or immediately language as a means of communication. Although it tends to be language that is limited in its scope of use, it can be important in facilitating communication and culture exchange between different groups. So for the example, the English Pidgin in Papua New Guinea, and then the Pidgin in the Caledonia Island, and then the Pidgin in the Solomon Island are some example of widely recognized Pidgin languages. Pidgin language are often a feature of the identity and culture of the groups that use them and can play an important role in social interaction and cross-cultural communication. So take this and for the example. So my friends is relative and I came from different areas. So more than that, I speak a language, while relative of my friends speak B language of using C language and in middle language. We both develop a new language, namely AB language. Then AB language is combination of my language, the language of my friend's relative language. So like I'm from Manado and then my friends from Japanese for the example, and then we can talk each other, so we use Indonesian language for communication, for effectively communication. That for the example. Okay, so for the next I have a history of Pidgin. The history, I put the PPT on here. So the history and origin of Pidgin language are closely tied to historical and social context of language and contact of and colonization. So first of all, colonial era. The Pidgin language often emerged during the colonial era when Europe powers established colonial and trading posts in various parts of the world. The need communication between colonials and local population, as well as between different ethnic and linguistic groups, lead to the development of simplified communication system. And then the slave trade. During the area's transatlantic slave trade, millions of Africans were forcibly probably taken to different parts of the Americas and the Caribbean. The diverse linguistic background of this enslaved individual copes with the necessity to communicate with each other, and with their captures contribute to emergence of Pidgin language. And then trading networks. The Pidgin language is developed in real regions where extensive trade networks exist, as from different linguistic background. In commercial activities, they need a common language to facilitate communication. So Pidgin language served as a bridge for trade and economic interaction. Language context zone areas characterized by linguistic diversity such as part cities, mining camps, or multicultural regions often become ground of development of Pidgin languages. In this language context zone, speakers of different languages interacted and create simple communication system to overcome language barriers. And then culture and social factors. Pidgin language were influenced by the culture and social dynamics of the communicators, using them element of local languages as well as those of the dominant colonial or trade languages were into the Pidgin system. Over these languages evolve and develop distinct characters. So it is important to note that the specifically history and origin of each Pidgin language are unique and influenced by the specific historical context in which they emerge. Pidgin language continue to evolve and adapt as new linguistic context situation arise, reflecting the ever-changing dynamics of language and culture. So the next I have a characteristic. Pidgin language process several characteristic features that distinguish them from other language. The first characteristic is simply grammar. Pidgin language typically have a simple grammar structure compared to their social language. They often lack complex verb, tense, grammatical gender, and intricate syntactic rules. And then secondly, reduced vocabulary. Pidgin language have a limited vocabulary compared to their social languages. They tend to borrow words from various languages involved in the language context situation and adapt them to fit the simple linguistic system. The third is code mixing. The Pidgin language frequently incorporate words, frasa, and even grammatical elements from different languages. This code mixing allows for effective communication between speakers of different language backgrounds. And then next, pragmatic and contextual use. Pidgin language prioritize the functional. They are primarily use the basic communication needs such as thread, simple conversation, or limited social interaction within specific context. And then the variation, the Pidgin language high level of variation and are influenced by the culture, sociolinguistic background of their speaker, and different Pidgin varieties can emerge in different regions. Its unique linguistic features and vocabulary. And then the limit use of first language. Pidgin language is generally not the first language by children, but are rather learned as a means of communication between speakers and different native language. Then interregional transmission is like a generation learn and use the Pidgin. It may under gradual development and stabilization. So it is important to note that this characteristic can vary across different Pidgin language due to the specific sociolinguistic context, which is they are used. Pidgin language are dynamic and constantly influenced by the needs and experience of the communicate that employ them. The next, Here is the theories. Substrate influence theory. According this theory, Pidgin language developed in multilingual society where there was a dominant language and several subordinate language. The dominant language exerts its influence of the subordinate language, resulting in the simply version known as the Pidgin language contribute vocabulary and grammatical elements to the Pidgin, while the dominant language provide the structure. And then the next is a context linguistic theory. This theory emphasizes the role of language context and culture context in the development of Pidgin language. It suggests that when speakers of different language come into contact, they create a simply and mutually language known as a Pidgin is shaped by the linguistic features of the language in context. So it's important to note that the origin of Pidgin language is a complex and dynamic process that can vary across different contexts and regions. These theories provide frameworks for understanding the emergence of Pidgin language, but the actual development of specifically Pidgin may involve a combination of the factors. So, based the question the given in the last exam is the stripped down nature of Pidgin has led them to being called reduced or minimal languages. They have even been compared to form of baby talk. A different view is that they are optimal communication system, perfectly appropriate to the circumstance of their use. Do you then any merit in this latter view? So my point of view is yes, there is a merit in the view that Pidgins are optimal communication system, perfectly appropriate to the circumstance of their use. While Pidgin may be considered reduced or minimal language due to their simply grammar and vocabulary, it is important to understand that they serve a specific communicative purpose in multilingual context. And then Pidgin arise when individuals with different language came into contact and need to establish a basic means of communication. In such situation, creating a fully developed language may not be feasible or necessary. Pidgin, with their simply structure and vocabulary drawn from multiple source language, allow for efficient and effective communication between speakers who otherwise would not understand each other. And Pidgin's priorities focusing on conveying essential information rather than elaborate linguistic features. They facilitate basic communication, and then in this sense Pidgin can be seen as optimal because they fulfill the communicative needs of the users. The specific context emerge. Moreover, Pidgin have a high degree. They are shaped by the linguistic and culture diversity, and then accommodate new words, expression, and concept. This dynamic nature allows Pidgin to adjust to changing effective means of communication. So Pidgin communication gaps facility interaction and foster understanding among speakers with different linguistic background. They serve as a statement of human creativity and the drive to establish meaningful connection even in challenging linguistic situation. So the summary is the optimal view of Pidgin emphasize their effective functionality and adaptability a communication system to specific context. While they may lack the complexity of fully formed language, Pidgin play a vital role in facilitating communication. interaction between speakers with different language, making them valuable and relevant within their intent context. So this is my presentation today for the final exam, and thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.